Totally forgot I had things muted. Oopsie doop. Anyway, let's get this started. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. And I can just do this. I'm so cool. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I am Professor Sticador Gooberson with Miskatonic University's Paranormal Research Division. Today, we're going to be talking about how politics works. So, here's the short answer it doesn't. Oh, wrong one. Go home. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, jokes aside, today we're going to be talking about one, why you should care. Why should anybody care? It's politics. It's boring as fuck. We're going to be talking about how a bill gets to the floor um, for debate. The process of it becoming a law and what can happen in that uh, pipeline. We'll say pipeline. And the bill's life cycle. So first off, why do we care? Well, to put it really simply, we care because politics is a game, and whether you're actively playing or not, you're still involved in the game. If you know the rules, then you can play the game and make sure that you can help yourself and others. So, by knowing how this works on a local level, on a state level, on a national level, is incredibly important because every single thing that politicians do actively affects you. Period. I just said that part. And you don't need a degree to do the basics. My degree is not in poli sci. At one point, I had a minor in poli sci, but ugh, it's a lot. It's a lot. So, just making sure that you're involved at the minimum on a local level is incredibly important, and the whole reason we're doing this lecture today. So, where do baby laws come from? Well, it starts with an idea. Um, it doesn't have to be a politician. It could be you. It could be, you know, family, blah, blah, blah. What matters is that it eventually works its way into a legislative office. From there, the idea is sent to legal services. The legislative branch has a special division set aside that is research, and their job is to go through existing law and make sure that one, you're not redoing something that's already been done. If a bill is redundant, there's no point in wasting time on it. But also making sure that it doesn't counteract something that maybe they don't want to do. If that makes sense. Oh crap! I forgot to pull up my props. Props. Do do do. Do 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 do. Whoop. Okay. Oh right, I gotta like push the button thing. There we go. So, after a bill is drafted, it's sent to the body. Once it's sent to the body, the rules committee is going to be the one that puts it on the calendar. Actually, there's a step in here I missed. So, once it's done getting drafted, it goes through legislative legal. Legislative legal then sends it to the body that it's going to start in. They assign it a name, and it's sent to the rules committee, and the rules committee then puts it on the calendar to be discussed. Oh, if I blank my thing, I can't use my bills. Oh, that's lame. Okay. So, for our discussion today, please ignore the stuff in the center of the screen. We're going to be using Senate Bill 420. Oh, sweet, I can just block it out. And House Bill 69. These are going to be our two bills that we're going to be shoving through the legislature today. And they're both going to be covering the same topic, equal rights amongst VTubers. Button. Yep. The bill will start in either the House or the Senate. So we have our House bill, we have our Senate bill. I did those backwards, whatever. These are going to be the same topic. The number depends on when it gets introduced, but realistically, it's kind of a failsafe. That if the bill is introduced to each body, because it's an important enough bill, and it's introduced to both bodies, then in the event something happens to one of them, there's still another one that they can work with. So if Senate Bill 420 has something that goes horribly, horribly awry with it, like language gets introduced that makes it like hyper racist or something like that, I don't know, then it's not going to make it through. So Senate Bill 420 will likely die, and then we will have House Bill 69 still left. So then these will go to their... I knew I included it in here. God, I wish this would go away. Okay. It is given to the clerical staff, and it's assigned its number and all that fun stuff. Click here. And while we're discussing the clerical staff, we're going to go ahead and talk nonpartisan staff, because that's realistically what we're looking at in this entire lecture today. Nonpartisan staff are incredibly important to the flow because somebody needs to be unbiased to oil the cogs that make the machine go. For this particular lecture, we're going to be talking about the Senate secretaries, the chief clerks. There are a number of other staff positions. The Senate secretaries work on the Senate side. There's no distinction. It's literally just the Senate secretaries, and then the House side has the chief clerk's office. So they're going to organize the bills that go to the floor. And they pretty much handle the entire session as it's rolling along during a floor session where they will be discussing and debating bills. So they're going to be sending messages to and from each other while they're on the floor if like a bill gets passed or if it's sent into second reading or if something needs to be sent to the other side. That will go through the chief clerk's office or the Senate secretaries. They will also tally the votes and keep records of everything that happens there. They're also going to be the ones that maintain a journal, which is a basic rundown of everything that happened during a legislative session that particular day. Bill introduction. So, before a bill is read, before a bill goes to be signed, we're gonna have to pull this up again, so ignore the letters. Before a bill becomes law, it has to be read 3 times. So Senate Bill 420 and House Bill 69 are going to go through their first reading. Their first reading, they're going to be assigned committees. So the Senate President is going to read across, or the Senate Secretary is going to read across Senate Bill 420. The Senate President, he or she, is going to then assign it to committees. So for Senate Bill 420, it's going to be, there's probably going to be legislative, judicial things that need to happen to it. So it's going to go to the Judiciary Committee. It'll probably go to the finance committee, even if it doesn't have a fiscal note attached to it. It's standard procedure to have something looked at. It's like, oh, is this going to cost us money? This one's an equal rights bill, so I don't think it should, but you never know. So it'll go through the finance committee as well. House Bill 69 will also do the same thing. It's going to go through the Judiciary Committee, but it's also going to go through the State Affairs Committee, because they're going to look at it and see, okay, so this is an equal rights bill. Is this going to be something that affects the state in a way that we need to be taking a closer look at? I'll put our bills away. So now we're in the committee process. Depending on the bill, there's a bunch of committees, and there's some committees that are committees, but they don't actually meet. They're kind of like phantom committees. So there's Community and Regional Affairs, CNRA, Education, Finance, which is the really big one. Like if you end up sitting on the Finance Committee as a legislative official, that's big. That's where all the money goes through. So that's like the one you want to sit on. Health and Social Services, Resources, Rules, State Affairs, Transportation, and hold on, let me go back. There we go. So, as we mentioned before, not all of these are committees that get sat on. So, all of these are ones that bills will get assigned to, with the exception of Rules. Rules is not going to be one of the committees that bills are sent to during the first reading. They will go to Rules before the first reading, and that's how they get placed on the calendar. Hold on. There's also the Committee on Committees, which is the body getting together and saying, okay, these senators, these representatives will be sitting on these committees. This person will be the designated president of, or the designated chair. This committee will have a designated chair, and maybe they'll have a co-chair. I think there's like a vice chair as well, but I haven't quite. I've seen it happen a lot, but I can never really figure out why. Words. Why there's a need for a vice versus a co. Like in particular, finance has a co-chair. So instead of having a chair of finance, it's one co-chair and another co-chair, and in some committees, it's the chair and the vice chair. And the vice chair will only act when the chair of the committee is not available. I like how I left a random blank slide in there too. So the committee is then going to break down the bill into its finite writing. It's going to take a look at all of the language of the bill, and it's going to hammer it down to what is essentials. Oh, thanks for the follow, dude. So they're going to break down the bill into what is its major components. When you see on television people arguing word definitions, this is one of the places that's going to happen. Let's say our bill, Senate Bill 420, has language in it that says shall allow or shall not inhibit the rights of VTubers. Shall is a word that is incredibly important. If you think about it in the context of like computer coding, it's your if-then statement. Shall is debated a lot on the floor, and it's one of those words that will be debated in committee as well. So they will look at that line and say, okay, it says shall. Does shall actually do what we need it to do there? Does it activate this particular line of the sequence in such a way that we want it to work? Versus this is the way it would actually work if it ended up in a legal setting. And there are a ton of places this bill will be broken down. It will the bill that is going to come across the floor is not going to be the same bill that was read across at first. It is going through so many committees and being rewritten so many different times that this bill will look completely different by time it's completely done with the committee process. Also, during the committee process, they can offer amendments. So, if we looked at our shall statement, shall allow for equal rights amongst VTubers, but let's say one of the senators looks at it and says, shall is a good word. I think we should use a different word though, because shall implies that maybe there's wiggle room. We don't want wiggle room. It's an equal rights bill. So instead of shall, we're gonna strike that out and we're gonna put must. So the legislature must recognize the rights of VTubers. Cool. So it gets offered an amendment. If it's amended in committee, then it's going to get its title changed. So this will become Senate Bill 420 amended. No, this will be Senate Bill 420, and then it was in Judiciary, and so it would be Senate Bill 420 Judiciary. It would have like a little tag on the side saying what committee it was adjusted in. Once the committee has looked at the bill and said, okay, we've done everything we can do to this bill, let's go ahead and send it on to the next part of the process. They will vote. If it gets a majority vote, it will go on to the next part. So since Senate Bill 420 only had one committee, we sent it to the Judiciary, it's going to be sent to the floor for its second reading. Now, House Bill 69 also got sent through Judiciary. They decided to leave the shall language in because they think that shall is not going to be, it doesn't give the legal wiggle room that they think it does. But it is also going to go through State Affairs. Actually, Senate Bill 420 should be going through Finance because it got a zero fiscal note. So it'll go through Finance. Finance will say there's no money involved in this. It's an equal rights bill. What the fuck are you doing? And it'll be sent back to be read for the second time on the floor. House Bill 69 will go through State Affairs. State Affairs will look at the bill and say, realistically, this does affect the state as it is giving rights to our citizens. We're going to read through this and make sure none of the citizens are skipped out on. And so while they're reading through Senate Bill or House Bill 69, they're going to look at it and say, okay, but the definition for VTuber here is very vague. It leaves too much of space for us legally because it doesn't include PNG tubers. It doesn't include whether or not VTuber is defined as a 2D versus 3D. So they're going to go back in and they're going to adjust this one in State Affairs to say that, to narrow down the definition of VTuber. VTuber is somebody who streams on the internet and has a virtual persona, whether it be 2D, 3D, or PNG. So now the House bill has been amended in the State Affairs, and it will go off to the House Finance. House Finance will look at this and go, why the fuck did you send us this? There's no money involved. And it will come back, and it will go to the House floor. We can put our bills away now. So now we're in second reading. When it's done with the committee process, it's going to come back for second reading. Committee substitutes can be offered to replace the bill. So our bills, God, I wish I had eventually I will have a better setup for this. So the original bill, as it was presented in first reading, is going to come back to the floor. It is going to be read across. So the Senate Secretary will be doing her thing. Eventually, in the order of business, they will come to daily order of business. So under the daily order of business, we have in second reading Senate Bill 420 amended judiciary. In judiciary, so they will read across the basic line. The Senate Secretary will say, okay, there's also an amended version that was made in the State Affairs. The State Affairs has offered a committee substitute. So the chair of the committee substitute will stand up and they'll say, oh, hey, so we don't think the language in this particular version of the bill was good. What we did is we went through and edited this, this, and this. If there's no objection, the committee substitute is adopted. If there is still objection maintained, it has to be voted on with a majority, I believe 2/3? No, it's not 2/3. It's just a majority of the members present. Sorry, breathing. So, the Senate is going to look at this bill and they go, okay, so you did change the wording. The language for the breathing is a hassle, dude. I don't approve. The language in this is good. There are some changes coming through in the House bill that we should be addressing. I think we should pass this on to its third reading. So, it's been read across. The committee substitute has been adopted. So, the third reading, we are going to read Senate Bill 420 as amended, Judiciary. Now, for the House bill, it has also been amended. It goes to the floor, it's voted on. They say, okay, well, you changed a lot of the language, but the language you've changed is justified. So we're going to go ahead and say, yes, we adopt the committee substitute. And so the House Senate, words. I'm just so excited to talk about politics. The House bill is going to be adopted. So it'll be House Bill 69 as amended, State Affairs. It will be voted on. They'll say, okie dokie. So now we go. Oh, during this point, during specifically second reading, the body as a whole can offer up amendments. So for Senate Bill 420, let's say that it gets to the floor. One of the members noticed that in the House side, they changed the language to narrow down the definition of VTubing. So they might offer up an amendment. The amendment will come to the floor. It'll be debated. It will be voted on. If it can get a majority vote of the members present, then it is adopted and the Senate bill will gain yet another tag on its title. We're just collecting titles at this point. So, Senate bill, if that were to happen, we're not going to do that for this particular context, but if it were to happen, Senate Bill 420 would become Senate Bill 420 Judiciary amended Senate. And then once it's voted through, which amendments, yes, bills can be engrossed and advanced to third reading. So like on a second reading, it's usually the next legislative working day that it's voted on. So goes into second reading, we handle all of our amendments. Okay, guys, so next time we're at the floor, we're going to vote on this particular bill. They can decide, no, we have no reason to wait. We can just go ahead and get this whole thing done now. So they're going to engross it with a words. They're going to engross it with the permission of the body. If anybody objects, it can be voted on, and as long as the vote still comes up majority favor, it can still be engrossed and advanced to third. We're not going to do that for Senate Bill 420. That's too complicated. Senate Bill House Bill 69 it doesn't need that either. They're already handling things fine on the House side. So Now we're in third reading for our bills. The next legislative day has come along. Everybody's gotten their coffee, had something to eat. We come in, sit down, go through the daily order of business, blah, 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 blah. Daily order of business. Oh, well, we have Senate Bill 420 as Senate Bill 420 Judiciary that is being read across for the third and final time. So this is the time we're going to debate the bills. The only thing we're debating during second is amendments made to the bill. We're not debating the bill itself. There's a distinction, and it is incredibly important that a member, when discussing an amendment, stick to the amendment, not the bill. We're not coming here to discuss the validity of House Bill 69 or Senate Bill 420. We're coming here because someone has said, hey, this language in the bill, I think we should strike it out, or I think we should replace it, or I think we should add language. And now everybody is debating, okay, so this has been offered, is it good? That's what we're doing in second. Now that we're in third, we're debating the bill as a whole as it stands. Oop, there. So during third, it'll be read across. The Senate President or the Speaker of the House will look at the bill and say, okay, so this one is coming from, or this base bill came from this member. So they're going to discuss the bill. So Senate Bill 420 was offered up by one of the senators. The senator will stand up. Okay, so I think this is a good bill. This is how we've written it out. This is how the language works in it. I feel that it's doing exactly what needs to be done. So I encourage you to vote yes. They vote. It gets through. Okay, neato torpedo. On the House side, the House says, okay, ready to cross. House member speaks on it, votes on it. Now it's done. So they've both gone through their third reading. They've passed, and now they're going to go, didn't mean to go that far, to each other's, bodies. So Senate Bill 420 is going to get sent to the House, and House Bill 69 is going to be sent to the Senate. It's going to come to them, and it's going to go through the entire fucking process again. So Senate Bill 420 will be read across on a first time. The Speaker of the House looks at the bill, says, okay, well, this does obviously deal with law going to the judiciary. We sent House Bill 69 to State Affairs. The Senate didn't do that, so we're going to send it to State Affairs as well. And zero fiscal notes, so fuck you, it's also going to finance. House Bill 69 comes to the Senate, and the Senate is going to read it across for the first time. So they're going to read it across. Senate President, we only sent it to Judiciary last time, and we don't really think there's a need to send it through State Affairs. It's already gone through that on the House side, so meh. We're just going to go ahead and send it through Judiciary and Finance. So now our baby bills are in the entire process again. Go back. There we go. So these are going to go through the whole kit and caboodle again. Now, for House Bill 69, it's going to go through. The Senate is going to say, I don't know. I don't think the language shall is still good here. I really honestly think it needs to be must. So the Judiciary Committee is going to offer their amendment. We're going to get House Bill. You got to give me a second. This is where the titles get really complicated. Like, they start off as simple little title of bills, they have like a short title that explains basically what's going on in the bill, and then the bill and the number. And by the end of it, it's like an entire string of words. So this will be, since it's amended on the Senate side, it will be House Bill 69, Judiciary. Judiciary, and then they're going to put a little S at the end that says that it was the one that they're looking at is amended in the Senate side. Senate Bill 420, they're going to look at it and they go, okay, Senate Bill 420 is a good bill. Nobody's debating that. The problem here is that they didn't define the language. I really think that House Bill 69 is a better bill. They're both the same. They've been changed a little bit. But through talks with the Senate, the House decides we're not going to worry about Senate Bill 420. So it's going to go to the Judiciary Committee. We're not going to worry about it, and it is going to die. And there are a lot of ways for bills to die. Senate Bill 420, unfortunately, is going to die, which leaves us with House Bill 69, as amended by the Judiciary Committee on the House side. Sorry, Senate side. Sorry, my bad. So, this bill has now gone through the entire process. It's gone through second reading. The Judiciary Committee substitute has been offered. Now we're going to bring it to the floor for the third reading. It goes to the third reading. They say, okay, well, this is a good bill. It was amended pretty good. I think it should be approved. It gets voted through. Now it is going to go back to the Senate, or back to the House. Sorry. It is going to go back to the House side. The House is going to look at it and say, okay, the Senate made changes to this. Do we like the changes that were made for this bill? At this point, it can go one of two ways. The House can concur, meaning that they agree with the changes that were made to the bill on the Senate side, or they can fail to concur. When a body fails to concur with changes made by the opposite body, sorry, my brain doesn't function that quickly, doesn't agree with the changes made, it is sent back to the second body. So now the House bill, if it was disapproved, it would go back to the Senate, and the House would say, hey, we don't like these changes you made. We like the way we had it. Take out your stuff. And the Senate can either say, we were iffy on that to begin with, so yeah, we'll go ahead and take it out. Or they can say, no, our version is better. We're going to keep it there. So now it is going to go back to the House. Yes, you can have a hall pass. Don't take too long, and don't lurk at anything down the corridors. You know which one's not to look down. So, it comes back to the House. The House says, no, we really want this the way we had it. So they're going to offer up 3 representatives. The Senate, conversely, is going to offer up 3 senators, and they're going to form a joint committee. The joint committee's whole job is to discuss this bill. That's it. They come and they just haggle with each other. Now, luckily, that didn't happen to our House Bill 69, because House Bill 69 is a good bill. But in the event that it wasn't a more controversial bill, it could very well end up in a joint committee, and it will be argued until they have a version that they feel is going to be accepted by both bodies. So for House Bill 69, if it were debated, it would come back to the House, and the House would say, okay, so we have a joint committee substitute for this bill. So they will go get the adopt the joint committee, blah blah blah. This longer process usually happens with more controversial bills, and realistically, you will see it most with budget bills. The state legislature has to take care of the spending for the state, and when the budget bill comes, it is all out war. It is intense in multiple days, and I have definitely stayed up until like 3 a.m. listening to people bicker because they're trying to get the budget done. So, budget bills are intense. Our lovely little Senate or House bill here, however, we've all kind of agreed, it's like, no, this needs to happen. We need to make sure that we have equal rights amongst the people, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to pass this into law. So it gets voted through, and yay! It passed. Woo! It passed both bodies. It is going to be sent to the governor. Yeah, the concur recede vote. We talked about this. So now it's on the governor's desk. The governor has a few things that he can do with this bill. Because we know for a fact that the governor can veto stuff. If a bill comes to the floor and like if he hears outcry from the people, it's like, no, this is a bad bill. We don't want this bill. Stop this bill. The governor can just refuse to make it law. That's a thing. And that's just an outright veto. But there's another portion of the veto that most people don't know about. And it's the line item veto. So let's say in our House bill, we have all the language for it, but there's a line at the bottom that says PNG tubers are not to be included in this bill. The public has an outcry, says no. PNG tubers are VTubers just the same as everybody else. They need to be included in this. And the governor agrees. And so he will take that and he will say, okay, I like this, we're getting rid of this. And he will veto out the line saying that PNG tubers are not covered under this bill. So if you were to look at a bill, the way it's written, I don't have any examples on my slides, unfortunately. It is incredibly difficult to find a template for a bill. Like, I asked all kinds of legislative staffers, just like, hey, do you have like a Microsoft Word template for writing a bill so I can do this lecture? And they were like, oh no, you just kind of type it. It's like, dude, have you seen the stuff that goes into writing these bills? It's not like that. So if you were to imagine you're writing code, okay? You know how, like, while you're writing the code, there's, like, numbers that go along the side? And then, like, if there's an issue, you go to that line in the code and fix it. It's like, error. I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know how to code. I've only seen code a couple of times. But the couple of times I've seen it, it's kind of formatted like this. So they will go and say, okay, this bill is approved, rejecting line 34, page 3. Why not? Now, here's another bit that is incredibly important. The legislature as a whole can come back and say, no, this bill needs to happen. We reject your veto. So, for our purposes, the governor vetoed House Bill 69. He's having a bad day. So, he decides he's going to veto House Bill 69. The legislative body decides, no, we worked way too hard on this. It is way too important. We can't allow it to be vetoed. Oh, I thought I had more on that. Um, I believe it is 2/3 of the body as a whole. So if you add the House of Representatives to the Senate, 2/3 of those people have to agree to reject the veto in order for the veto to pass. In the event that that doesn't happen, which House Bill 69 is not going to have that happen, it is signed, made into law, and then the governor is going to send it to the lieutenant governor. The lieutenant governor is then going to put it in the records where it is added into the state law books. And without passing out from lack of oxygen, that wraps up our lecture. Does anybody have any questions? I know this is an incredibly complicated process, and I boiled it down to about an hour's worth of talk. So if there are questions, you're not hurting my feelings, I promise. Don't really see any. Okay. Well, I hope you learned something. Remember, this process is incredibly important. This is why voting is important. November is a month in which we need to vote because there's a lot riding on these elections. I'm not getting into the controversial stuff. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. You still should get out and vote, but don't just go out and vote because, the professor said go out and vote. Do your research, find out what's important to you, make sure that you handle all of your research and you find out who sits with your ideals so that when you go to the voting booth, you know who you're going to be voting for. Also, look at the initiatives that have been put on there. Make sure you understand the way they're written. Also, not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But since November is incredibly important, specifically for America for our election season, make sure that's why I wanted to do this lecture. So, make sure you vote. There is legal precedents saying, not legal precedents. There is an argument to be made that not voting is in a way voting by abstaining. I'm not going to tell you like you're a horrible person for not voting. That's not my job. I'm just here to teach you stuff. But I hope you learned a lot more about the legislative process. And, once you start learning about things, they get a lot less scary. And politics is absolutely one of those things that, like, it's big and it's daunting and it's overly controlling. So I'm kind of hoping that by sitting through this and watching the VOD, if anybody is watching the VOD, you will be a little less afraid of it and go out there and maybe get involved in your community. Maybe you'll just go register to vote. It doesn't matter. I hope you will want to get involved, but this is still a country where it's your choice. If you're not in America, I hope that looking at the way our legislative system works has made you a little curious how your legislative system works. And I more than encourage you to go do research on how things work in your country. America is not unique in the way it does things. There's some quirks here and there, but it's a system that has been used universally. There's going to be quirks, so maybe find out how things work differently in your country. Maybe find out how you can get involved in your country. Those are the things that I really want to be impressing on you guys. Remember, knowledge is so incredibly important. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap the lecture. And I gotta find My phone. Boop a doop. Let's see. Let's go. Oh, Elsa's on. Okay, we're gonna go raid another slime that I know. I really hope you guys enjoyed the lecture. Please feel free to send me messages. Let me know maybe topics that you would like to have discussed in the future. I'm really hoping that I can expand this more and be able to bring it. Politics is really not that hard. It's not. It looks hard from the outside when you don't understand it, but it really isn't that difficult once you get down to the nitty gritty. And that's part of why I wanted you guys to sit through this lecture. You know, take some of the scary out of it. But we're going to go raid. Yes, it's very it's very intertwined. Um, because during this particular process, all three branches are going to be involved. Um, the judicial branch is going to be commenting on what is and isn't legal currently, what isn't, like if a bill were to be passed, how it would affect. Um, the legislative branch is going to be fine tuning the bill so that when it's presented as a law, it is presented in the best state that it can possibly be. And the executive branch is going to be using their power to make sure that the two branches don't overexert themselves. We don't want the judiciary branch to just get all of the power and say, nope, any bill you pass, we're not going to recognize it, refuse. And we don't want the legislative branch to go, well, we're going to pass all this stuff and we don't care what the judicial branch says. It's that triangular balance of power. And in the legislative process, you're going to see all three of them coming together to work towards making things better. Hopefully. But yes, there is absolutely a ton of reading. So much reading. I have seen bills that are like a line or two. They're super short and sweet. They get exactly what they need to get done. And then there are bills that are so freaking big you could kill somebody with them if you hit them with it. I have pictures of me that I'm not going to post anywhere because it's got my face on it. But when I was younger, holding budget bills that were like a couple thousand pages. Well, that's exaggerated. I think the biggest I'd ever seen was 650 pages. Um, but they get really big. And the bigger the bill is, usually the more controversial the bill is, and the more fine tuning needs to be done. So, yes, there is a ton of reading. So much. But there's also a lot of people to help you out with the reading. There's going to be the lawyers that are working with the legislative branch. There's going to be the people in research who are going to be looking through making sure your bill doesn't mess with anything else. There's going to be uh, ethics. The ethics portion is incredibly important. When you go to a legislative office as a staffer, once a legislative year, you have to sit through an ethics lecture, and the ethics lecture is so boring. But it's one of those things that it's like getting a shot. You got to sit through it. It's got to happen. Got to make sure that you know all of the rules. If there were any changes in the ethics rules, it's all of that stuff. Yeah, that's true. That is true. And no, my thought just left me. But I really hope that you managed to pull something out of this, and I'm gonna try and get it shared around. It's definitely going up on my VOD channel, so if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube yet, feel free to subscribe there. There's like a grand total of 2 people that subscribe, so you get in on the ground floor, I guess. Um, but we're going to read. And I do have more lectures coming up. They're going to be on a wide variety of topics. This is more of a hobby for me than it is a job. So I I I have some planned. I've got one on the Saragari that I think is going to be really cool. They were a group of Middle Eastern warriors that were fighting for the British. It's like this great big huge long story, and it's so incredibly intense. And like if you like action flicks, this one this like the fact that this hasn't been made into an action movie yet hurts my soul. So I look forward to doing more lectures, and I hope this one worked out really well. If you have any feedback, by all means, feel free to DM me. My Twitter is always open. And we're going to go ahead and start that raid. Yeah. Tell her I said hi, and I hope you guys had fun. All right, bye.